Jackson Wolf never expected to run into his past at the airport, especially not Mia Brooks, the woman who disappeared from his life 12 years ago. But nothing could have prepared him for her son's words. "Daddy?" The boy was his mirror image, a son he never knew existed. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. Jackson Wolf checked his Rolex watch for the third time in 5 minutes. His flight to London was scheduled to leave in 40 minutes, and he still had to get through security. The airport was packed with travelers, many looking as impatient as he felt. "Mr. Wolf, I've confirmed your car will be waiting when you land at Heathrow," said Rebecca, his assistant, typing furiously on her tablet. "And the meeting with European investors has been pushed back 2 hours to accommodate your arrival time." "Good," Jackson replied, not bothering to look at her. At 42, Jackson had built Wolf Enterprises from the ground up. His steel blue eyes rarely showed emotion, and his dark hair was perfectly styled despite the early morning rush. The tailored, charcoal suit he wore probably cost more than what most people in the airport made in a month. "You should go ahead," he told Rebecca, handing her his briefcase. "Make sure everything's ready. I'll be right behind you." As Rebecca hurried toward the security line, Jackson's phone rang. Another business call. Always business. He answered it, while walking briskly through the terminal, barely noticing the people around him. "Wolf here," he said in his trademark commanding tone. "Tell them I won't accept anything less than full control of the board. They need me more than I need them." He was so focused on his call that he almost didn't see her. Almost. But something, maybe, fate, maybe coincidence, made him look up at exactly the right moment. And there she was, standing near a coffee kiosk, Mia Brooks. The phone call forgotten, Jackson stopped dead in his tracks. 12 years had passed since he'd last seen her, but he would have recognized her anywhere. Her honey brown hair was shorter, now falling just past her shoulders instead of down her back. She wore simple jeans and a blue sweater, but to Jackson she outshone every other woman in the airport. He realized the person on the phone was still talking. "I'll call you back," he said abruptly, ending the call without waiting for a response. For a moment, Jackson wondered if he should just keep walking. The past was the past. What good would come from opening old wounds? But his feet were already moving toward her, as if they had a mind of their own. She hadn't noticed him yet. She was looking down, talking to someone, a child. A boy with dark hair, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Jackson couldn't see the child's face. "Mia," he said when he was just a few feet away. She looked up, and her face went pale. The coffee cup in her hand tilted dangerously. "Jackson," she whispered, and her voice was exactly as he remembered it. Soft, warm, now tinged with panic. That's when the boy turned around. Jackson felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Hard. The air left his lungs in a rush. The boy had his eyes, the same steel blue color that Jackson saw every morning in the mirror. The same strong jawline even on a child's face, the same slight dimple in his right cheek. It was like looking at a miniature version of himself. "Mom, who's that?" the boy asked, tugging on Mia's hand. Mia seemed frozen, her eyes wide with fear and something else. Guilt, maybe. She gripped the boy's hand tighter. "Tyler, we need to go. Our flight—" "But Mom, he looks like me," the boy Tyler said with a child's innocent observation. He looked at Jackson with curious eyes. Then a smile of recognition spread across his face, as if pieces were falling into place in his young mind. "Daddy?" Tyler said, his voice filled with hope and wonder. The world around Jackson seemed to stop. The noise of the busy airport faded away. All he could hear was that one word echoing in his head. Daddy. He had a son. A son he never knew existed. Mia's face crumbled. "Tyler, no, I told you." She stopped, looking desperately around, as if searching for an escape route. "Mia," Jackson said again, his voice rough with emotion. "We need to talk." "Not here," she whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. "Not now." "Yes, now," Jackson insisted. He couldn't take his eyes off the boy, off Tyler, his son. "How old is he?" Mia swallowed hard. 7. Jackson did the math quickly. 7 years, which meant Mia must have been pregnant when she left him, when she disappeared from his life without explanation. "Were you ever going to tell me?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Tyler looked back and forth between them, confusion replacing his earlier excitement. "Mom? Is this really my dad? You said my dad was away on important business?" Mia closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. When she opened them, there was determination in her gaze. "Tyler, honey, can you go sit on that bench for a minute? I need to talk to this man. I can see you from here." Tyler hesitated, still staring at Jackson with fascination. "Go on," Mia urged gently. "Just for a minute." Once Tyler was seated on a nearby bench, still watching them intently, Mia turned to Jackson. "You had no right to just show up like this," she said, her voice shaking. "To disrupt our lives." "I had no right." Jackson's temper flared. "What about my right to know I have a son? A son you've kept hidden from me for 7 years." "Lower your voice," Mia hissed, glancing nervously at Tyler. "This isn't the place." "Then where is the place, Mia? When is the right time? Another 7 years from now." A tear slipped down Mia's cheek. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." Jackson challenged. Mia looked at her watch. "Our flight leaves in 30 minutes. I can't do this now." "Cancel it," Jackson said immediately. "What?" "Cancel your flight. I'll cancel mine. This is more important than any business deal." Mia looked surprised, and Jackson realized with a pang that she still thought of him as the man he'd been 12 years ago, the man who always put work first. Even above her. "We can't just cancel." "Yes, we can," Jackson interrupted. He pulled out his phone and quickly dialed. "Rebecca, change of plans. I won't be making the London flight. Reschedule everything." He ended the call before his assistant. "Could argue." "Your turn," he said to Mia. She hesitated, then sighed in defeat. "We were just going to visit my sister in Chicago. It's not that important." "Good." Jackson glanced at Tyler, who was now playing some game on a small tablet, though he kept looking up at them every few seconds. "There's a private lounge on the next level. We can talk there." "I'm not going anywhere private with you," Mia said firmly. "Fine. There's a restaurant near the main entrance. Public enough for you?" After a moment, Mia nodded. "Let me tell Tyler." Jackson watched as she walked over to the boy, to their son, and spoke softly to him. Tyler's face lit up with excitement, and he looked over at Jackson with naked curiosity and hope. It made Jackson's chest ache. 20 minutes later, they were seated at a corner table in the airport restaurant. Tyler sat between them, happily devouring a stack of pancakes while Jackson and Mia stared at their untouched coffee cups. "Is it true?" Tyler asked suddenly, looking up at Jackson with syrup on his chin. "Are you really my dad?" Mia closed her eyes. Briefly, as if in pain, Jackson looked at the boy, at his son, and felt a surge of emotion he couldn't quite name. "Yes," he said simply. "I am." Tyler's face broke into a wide grin, revealing a missing front tooth. "I knew it. You look just like me in my school pictures, or I look like you. Mom has pictures of you, you know. She keeps them in a box in her closet." Mia's cheeks turned pink. "Tyler, please eat your breakfast." "But why haven't you been around?" Tyler continued, ignoring his mother's discomfort. "Mom said you were busy with important work, but couldn't you visit sometimes?" Jackson didn't know how to answer that. He looked at Mia, his eyes demanding an explanation. "Tyler," Mia said gently, "remember how I explained that grown-up relationships are complicated? Mr. Wolf and I need to talk about some things, okay?" "But he's not Mr. Wolf. He's my dad," Tyler insisted, with a child's straightforward logic. Jackson felt a rush of gratitude toward the boy. "You can call me Jackson for now if that's okay," he said, offering a compromise that he hoped would ease some of the tension. Tyler seemed to consider this. "Okay, Jackson, do you like video games? I'm really good at Minecraft." Despite everything, Jackson found himself smiling. "I've never played, but maybe you could teach me sometime." "Really?" Tyler's eyes lit up. "Mom, can Jackson come over to play Minecraft with me? Please." The panic was back, in Mia's eyes. "Tyler, honey, finish your breakfast. We need to call Aunt Lisa and tell her we're not coming today." Taking the hint, Tyler turned his attention back to his pancakes, though he kept stealing glances at Jackson. "Why?" Jackson asked Mia quietly. making sure Tyler was focused on his food. "Why did you keep him from me?" "Not here," Mia whispered. "Not in front of him." Jackson nodded, understanding that much at least. But he wasn't going to let this go. Not by a long shot. "Where are you staying?" he asked. "We live in Springfield," Mia replied, naming a city about an hour's drive from the airport. "We were going to spend the weekend with my sister. I have an apartment in the city," Jackson said. "You could come there." "No," Mia cut him off. "That's not happening." Jackson tamped down his frustration. "Fine. I'll get a hotel room near Springfield. We can meet tomorrow somewhere public if that makes you feel better. But we are going to talk about this, Mia. About him." He nodded toward Tyler. Mia looked like she wanted to argue, but after a moment she nodded. "Fine, tomorrow. There's a park near our house. Tyler can play while we talk." "I want to come too," Tyler chimed in, showing he'd been listening despite their efforts. "You'll be there, buddy," Jackson assured him, the endearment slipping out naturally. "I promise." The word promise seemed to hang in the air between them. Jackson saw Mia flinch slightly. "Don't make promises to him," she said in a low voice. "Not yet." Jackson leaned forward, keeping his voice steady despite the anger and hurt churning inside him. "I have a right to know my son, Mia, and he has a right to know me. Whatever happened between us, that's the truth." For a moment, something like regret flashed in Mia's eyes. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a pen, scribbling an address on a napkin. 3 o'clock tomorrow, she said, sliding the napkin toward him. "Don't be late." "I won't be," Jackson replied, tucking the napkin into his pocket. As he watched Mia help Tyler gather his things, Jackson knew his life had just changed forever. The past he'd tried so hard to leave behind had caught up with him in the most unexpected way. And this time, he wasn't going to walk away from it, from them. Jackson barely slept that night in his 5-star hotel room. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Tyler's face, his own eyes looking back at him with innocent hope. He had a son. The reality of it kept hitting him in waves. By morning, his initial shock had hardened into determination. He made several calls, rearranging meetings and delegating tasks. For once, Wolf Enterprises wasn't his top priority. "Cancel everything for the next week," he told Rebecca over the phone. "Family emergency." "Family emergency," Rebecca repeated, confusion evident in her voice. In the 10 years she'd worked for him, Jackson had never once mentioned family issues. "Yes," Jackson said firmly, "and I need you to get me information on schools in Springfield. Elementary schools, the best ones." There was a pause on the line. "Are Juice relocating the company?" "No, just do it, Rebecca." After ending the call, Jackson stood by the hotel window, looking out at the unfamiliar suburban landscape. Springfield was a far cry from his usual surroundings. No skyscrapers, no bustling financial district, just quiet streets and family homes. The kind of place where a boy could grow up safe and happy. A boy like Tyler, with hours to kill before. Their meeting, Jackson did something he hadn't done in years. He went shopping for someone else. The mall was crowded with Saturday shoppers, but he moved with purpose, heading straight for the toy store. Standing amid aisles of colorful toys, Jackson suddenly felt lost. What did 7-year-old boys like? What did Tyler like? He should know these things about his own son. "Can I help you find something?" a cheerful salesperson asked. "Minecraft," Jackson said, remembering Tyler's words from yesterday. "Anything to do with Minecraft?" An hour later, Jackson left the store with 3 bags of Minecraft toys, games, and even a t-shirt. It wasn't exactly a plan, but it was a start. At precisely 2:45, Jackson pulled his rented luxury car into the parking lot of Meadow Lane Park. The playground was crowded with weekend visitors, parents watching children climb, swing, and slide. In the warm afternoon sun, he spotted them immediately. Mia sat on a bench near the sandbox, her honey-brown hair catching the sunlight. Tyler was building something in the sand, his small face serious with concentration. For a moment, Jackson just watched them from a distance. Mother and son, his son. The family he never knew he had. Then Tyler looked up and saw him. The boy's face broke into a wide smile and he waved enthusiastically. "Jackson, you came," Tyler shouted, jumping up and running toward him, leaving a trail of sandy footprints. Mia's head snapped up, her expression a mixture of resignation and wariness as she followed her son. "I said I would," Jackson replied, smiling at Tyler's enthusiasm. He held up the shopping bags. "I brought some things for us to play with." Tyler's eyes widened. "For me?" "Tyler," Mia cut in before Jackson could answer. "Why don't you go back to your sandcastle for a few minutes while I talk to Jackson?" The boy looked disappointed but nodded. "Okay, but hurry up, I want to see what's in the bags." Once Tyler was out of earshot, Mia turned to Jackson with fire in her eyes. "You can't buy his affection," she said, keeping her voice low. "That's not how this works." "I'm not trying to buy anything," Jackson replied, matching her tone. "I just wanted to bring him something. Is that so wrong?" Mia sighed, some of the fight leaving her. "No, I guess not. It's just, this is all happening so fast." "Because you forced it to," Jackson pointed out. "We could have had 7 years to figure this out slowly, but you made a different choice." Mia looked away, watching Tyler in the sandbox. "Let's sit down," she said, gesturing to a bench slightly removed from the main playground area. "We need to talk." Once seated, Jackson went straight to the point. "Why, Mia? Why did you keep him from me?" Mia was quiet for so long that Jackson thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I was scared." "Of what?" "Of me?" She shook her head. "Not of you, exactly. Of what would happen. Of losing him." "I would never have taken him from you," Jackson said, offended by the implication. "Wouldn't you?" Mia looked at him directly now. "Jackson Wolfe, the man who always gets what he wants, the man who crushes competition and buys out anyone who stands in his way. You think I didn't read about you all these years? Your reputation isn't exactly family-friendly." Her words stung, partly because there was truth in them. "That's business, not family." "Is there a difference for you?" Mia challenged. There wasn't. 12 years ago. Old pain flashed in her eyes, and Jackson was reminded of their final fight, how he'd chosen a crucial meeting over her graduation ceremony, how he'd told her she was being childish for not understanding that his career had to come first, how he'd returned to an empty apartment and a goodbye note. "I've changed," he said, though even to his own ears it sounded hollow. "Have you? You were at the airport for business, weren't you? On your way to another deal, another conquest." Jackson couldn't deny it. "That doesn't mean I wouldn't have wanted to know my son, that I wouldn't have supported you both." "With money?" Mia asked. "Because that's what you think fixes everything." "But Tyler needed more than child support checks, Jackson. He needed a father who would be there, who would choose him." "You never gave me the chance to choose," Jackson said, his anger rising again. "You made that choice for me." Before Mia could respond, Tyler came running over. "Mom, Jackson, come see my sandcastle." I made it look like a Minecraft village. The tension between them had to be put aside as they followed Tyler back to the sandbox. Jackson knelt down despite his expensive clothes to examine the boy's creation. "This is impressive," he said, genuinely amazed at the detailed structures Tyler had built. "You're really good at this." Tyler beamed at the praise. "Can I see what's in the bags now, please?" Jackson looked at Mia, silently asking permission. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "One thing," she said. "The rest can wait until we get home." Tyler's eyes lit up. "Home? Is Jackson coming to our house?" Mia looked uncomfortable. "I didn't mean—" "Please, Mom," Tyler begged. "He can see my room and all my other stuff, and we can play Minecraft like he promised." "I don't think that's a good idea today," Mia said carefully. Jackson saw the disappointment on Tyler's face and felt a surge of protectiveness. "How about tomorrow?" he suggested, looking at Mia. "If that's okay with your mom, of course." Tyler turned pleading eyes to Mia. "Please, Mom. Pretty please." Mia hesitated, clearly torn. Finally, she sighed. "Fine. Tomorrow afternoon, but just for a little while." "Yes." Tyler pumped his fist in victory. "This is going to be awesome." As Tyler excitedly dug through the shopping bags, pulling out a Minecraft figure with a cry of delight, Jackson caught Mia watching him with an unreadable expression. "What?" he asked quietly. "Nothing," she said, then added, He looks like you when he smiles. He always has. Something warm unfurled in Jackson's chest at her words. Tell me about him, he said. Everything I've missed. Mia's expression softened. Slightly. That would take a while. I've got time, Jackson replied. And for once he meant it. For the next hour, they sat on a park bench watching Tyler play with his new toy, while Mia filled in some of the blank pages of their son's life. His first words, ball and juice. His first steps, at 10 months early like everything else he did. His love of dinosaurs before Minecraft took over. His talent for math and his struggle with spelling. With each story, each small detail, Jackson felt the weight of what he'd missed pressing down on him. 7 years of birthdays, 7 years of firsts, 7 years he could never get back. He asks about you, Mia admitted. Has been since he was old enough to understand that other kids had dads and he didn't. I told him you were away on business, that you were important and busy. But not that I didn't know about him, Jackson guessed. Mia looked down. I couldn't bring myself to tell him that. Because then you'd have to explain why you kept him a secret, Jackson said, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. It wasn't that simple, Mia insisted. I found out I was pregnant after I left. I was hurt and angry. I thought you'd see us as a complication to your perfect life plan. And later, when you weren't so angry, Mia was quiet for a moment. By then, we had built a life. Tyler was happy. I was managing. And you were becoming this business legend, making headlines with your ruthless takeovers and dating models and actresses. Hardly the life that had room for surprise fatherhood. Before Jackson could argue, Tyler came running back. Can we get ice cream? He asked, his new Minecraft figure clutched tightly in his hand. They have a truck over there. Sure, Mia said, seeming relieved by the interruption. What flavor do you want? Chocolate chip, Tyler looked at Jackson. What's your favorite ice cream? Vanilla, Jackson answered truthfully. Tyler made a face. That's boring. You should try chocolate chip, it's way better. Jackson found himself smiling. Maybe I will. As they walked toward the ice cream truck, Tyler slipped his small hand into Jackson's much larger one. The simple gesture caught Jackson off guard, and for a moment he couldn't breathe past the lump in his throat. He looked over at Mia, who was watching them with a complicated expression, part worry, part something that might have been tenderness. He's never shy, she explained quietly. Always makes friends easily. Like his mother, Jackson replied, remembering how Mia had been in college, always surrounded by people drawn to her warmth and easy laugh. A flash of the old Mia showed in her smile. Maybe a little. After ice cream, they walked around the park, Tyler chattering excitedly between them, sometimes to Mia, sometimes to Jackson, often to both. To anyone watching, they might have looked like any normal family enjoying a Saturday afternoon. The thought made Jackson's chest tighten with a longing he hadn't expected to feel. When the sun began to set, Mia announced it was time to go home. Will, you come to our house now? Tyler asked Jackson, ice cream still smudged around his mouth. Tomorrow, Jackson reminded him. Your mom and I agreed on tomorrow, remember? Tyler nodded, though he looked a bit disappointed. Promise you'll come? A lot of times people say they'll come, but then they don't. The words stabbed at Jackson's heart. I promise, he said firmly. What time should I be there? He asked Mia. Around noon, she suggested. We go to church in the morning. Church, another piece of their life Jackson knew nothing about. Noon it is, he agreed. Tyler threw his arms around Jackson's waist in a sudden hug. See you tomorrow. Jackson. The slight hesitation, before his name reminded Jackson that his son had almost called him Dad again. The title he hadn't earned yet. But he would. Somehow, he would. As he watched Mia and Tyler walk to their car, Jackson made a decision. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Rebecca? It's me. I need you to clear my schedule for the next month, not just the week. And find me a house to rent in Springfield, something close to Oak Ridge Elementary. There was a startled pause. Mr. Wolf, are you sure? The board meeting next week is crucial for the Gibson merger. Let Palmer handle it, Jackson said, naming his second-in-command. I have more important things to take care of. He ended the call, feeling lighter than he had in years. For once, the company, the deals, the money None of it seemed to matter, as much as the small boy with chocolate ice cream on his face and Jackson's eyes. Back at his hotel, Jackson opened his laptop and did something he'd avoided for years. He searched for Mia Brooks online. There wasn't much. Mia had never been one for social media, but he found her LinkedIn profile. She was a teacher at Oak Ridge Elementary, the same school Tyler attended. English and drama for 5th and 6th. Graders. He smiled, remembering how she'd always loved books and theater. She'd been studying education when they were together, dreaming of inspiring young minds. At least that dream had come true for her. Next, he searched for real estate in Springfield, specifically near Oak Ridge Elementary. It didn't take long to find several options. He made a few calls and arranged to see 3 properties the next day, after his visit with Tyler. As he finally lay down to sleep that night, Jackson realized something had changed within him. For the first time in 12 years, he wasn't thinking about the next deal, the next acquisition, the next victory in the business world. He was thinking about a small hand in his, about blue eyes that mirrored his own, about tomorrow and all. The tomorrows after. The son he never knew had already changed his life in ways he couldn't have imagined, and this was just the beginning. The next morning, Jackson woke up earlier than usual. He ordered room service and checked his emails while eating breakfast, but his mind kept wandering to the afternoon ahead. There was a nervous energy in him that he usually only felt before closing major business deals. At 11, he called the front desk and asked for directions to the nearest florist. It seemed right to bring something for Mia. Not too romantic. Just a gesture of, what, gratitude? Apology? He wasn't sure. The florist suggested a simple arrangement of mixed flowers. Nothing too romantic, Jackson instructed. We're not together, it's complicated. The older woman smiled knowingly. Complicated usually means there's still something there, she said as she wrapped the bouquet. Jackson didn't answer. Was there still something between him and Mia? He couldn't deny that seeing her again had stirred old feelings, but there was too much unsaid, too much hurt between them. At exactly noon, Jackson pulled up in front of the address Mia had given him. It was a modest 2-story house with blue shutters and a well-kept garden. Not fancy, but charming and homey. A child's bicycle lay on its side in the driveway. Taking a deep breath, Jackson approached the front door, flowers in one hand and the remaining bags of gifts for Tyler in the other. Before he could knock, the door flew open, and Tyler stood there, grinning widely. "You're here," he exclaimed. "Mum said you might be late because important businessmen are always busy, but I told her you promised, so you'd come." The simple faith in the boy's eyes hit Jackson hard. "I always keep my promises," he said seriously. "Tyler, let Mr. Wolf actually come inside before you talk his ear off," Mia's voice called from somewhere in the house. "It's Jackson, Mom, not Mr. Wolf," Tyler corrected, pulling Jackson by the sleeve. "Come on, I want to show you my room." Mia appeared in the hallway, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. She was dressed casually in jeans and a simple blue top, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger like this, more like the Mia he'd known in college. "Hi," she said, sounding a bit uncertain. "You found the place okay?" "GPS," Jackson replied, holding out the flowers. "These are for you, to say thank you for today." Mia seemed surprised as she took the bouquet. "Thank you, that's thoughtful." For a moment they just looked at each other, the air between them filled with unspoken words. "Mom, can I show Jackson my room now?" Tyler asked impatiently, breaking the tension. "Go ahead," Mia said with a smile. "I'll put these in water." Tyler practically dragged Jackson up the stairs, talking a mile a minute. "My room is the best room in the house," Mom says. "I have all my Minecraft stuff and my books and my dinosaurs from when I was little. Mom says I'm not little anymore, but I'm not big either, I'm medium. And I have a star map on my ceiling that glows in the dark and..." He pushed open a door, revealing a typical 7-year-old boy's room, colorful, cluttered, and full of personality. Posters of dinosaurs and Minecraft. Scenes covered the walls. A small desk was piled with books and drawing supplies. The twin bed had a space-themed comforter. "This is my bed, and this is where I keep all my special stuff," Tyler continued, opening a wooden box on his nightstand. See? He pulled out various treasures, a smooth rock, a blue feather, a small toy car missing a wheel. Jackson nodded and commented appropriately, but his attention was caught by something on the wall, a framed drawing. It showed 3 stick figures, a tall woman with brown hair, a small boy, and a tall man with a question mark for a face. I drew that last year, Tyler said, following Jackson's gaze. It's me and Mom and, well, you, I guess. But I didn't know what you looked like then. Jackson swallowed hard. It's a good drawing. I could make a new one now, Tyler offered. With your real face instead of the question mark. I'd like that, Jackson said, his voice rough. Before the moment could get too emotional, Tyler bounced over to a shelf filled with toys. Want to see my Minecraft world? I can show you on my tablet. For the next half hour, Jackson sat on the edge of Tyler's bed, getting a crash course in Minecraft. The boy was patient but enthusiastic, explaining everything in detail. You're a good teacher, Jackson commented at one point. Tyler beamed. Mom says the same thing. She says I get that from her since she's a teacher too. Your mom always was smart, Jackson agreed. Even in college, she was the one everyone went to for help. Tyler's eyes widened. You knew Mom in college? Were you her boyfriend? Jackson hesitated, not sure how much Mia had told him. Yes, we met in college. So that's when you made me? Tyler asked innocently. Jackson nearly choked. Tyler. Mia's voice called up the stairs, saving Jackson from having to answer. Lunch is ready. Coming, Tyler shouted back. He grabbed Jackson's hand. Mom made her famous grilled cheese. It's the best in the whole world. Downstairs, the small dining table was set for 3. A plate of perfectly golden grilled cheese sandwiches sat in the center along with a bowl of tomato soup and a salad. Nothing fancy, Mia said, looking a bit embarrassed. But it's Tyler's favorite. It looks great, Jackson assured her, and he meant it. Despite all the 5-star restaurants he'd eaten in over the years, there was something appealing about this simple family meal. As they ate, Tyler kept the conversation flowing, jumping from topic to topic, school, his friends, a movie he'd seen recently. Jackson noticed the easy rapport between mother and son, the inside jokes and shared references that spoke of their close bond. He felt a twinge of envy, followed by a stronger surge, of gratitude that Tyler had at least had one loving, devoted parent all these years. So, Jackson, Mia said during a rare lull in Tyler's chatter, how long are you planning to stay in Springfield? Before he could answer, his phone rang. The special ringtone told him it was Rebecca. Excuse me, he said, standing up. I need to take this. He stepped into the living room. What is it, Rebecca? I told you only emergencies. The Gibson deal is falling apart, Rebecca said without preamble. They're threatening to go with Stark Industries instead. The board is in panic mode. They're calling for an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. A week ago, this news would have sent Jackson rushing to the airport. The Gibson deal was worth millions. But now, looking back toward the kitchen where Tyler was animatedly telling Mia something that made her laugh, different priorities crystallized in his mind. Tell them I'll conference in, he said firmly. I'm not coming back yet. But, Mr. Wolf, handle it, Rebecca. That's why I pay you the big bucks. He ended the call and returned to the table. Everything okay? Mia asked, a knowing look in her eyes. She'd heard many such calls during their time together. Just work, Jackson said dismissively. Then, answering her earlier question, and to answer you, I'm staying in Springfield for a while. In fact, I'm looking at rental properties this afternoon. Mia nearly dropped her spoon. You're, what? Renting a place here. Nothing permanent, just for a month or 2. He turned to Tyler. That way we can spend more time together, if that's okay with you and your mom, of course. Tyler's face lit up. Really, you're staying? That's awesome. Mia looked less enthusiastic. Can you just do that? Walk away from your business for months? I built the company to run without me if necessary, Jackson said with confidence he didn't entirely feel. It's time I tested that theory. After lunch, Tyler insisted on showing Jackson the backyard, where he had a small treehouse his uncle had helped build. That's from my brother, Tom, Mia explained as they watched Tyler scramble up the ladder. He lives a few hours away but visits whenever he can. He's been a male figure for Tyler, Jackson nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and jealousy toward this unknown man who'd been part of his son's life when he couldn't be. "Does your family know?" he asked quietly. "About me, I mean." Mia sighed. "Tom does. My parents. They know Tyler's father isn't in the picture, but not the details. Mom would have insisted, I tell you. She's big on family obligations, even when they're complicated." "Is that how you see me? As a complication?" Before Mia could answer, Tyler called down from the treehouse. "Jackson, come up here. You can see the whole neighborhood." Jackson looked doubtfully at the small wooden structure. "I'm not sure that's built for someone my size, buddy." "It's okay," Mia assured him with a small smile. "Tom is about your size and he goes up there all the time. It's sturdier than it looks." Careful not to dirty his designer clothes, Jackson climbed the wooden ladder. The treehouse was small but solidly built, with enough room for him to sit cross-legged opposite Tyler. "Cool, right?" Tyler said proudly. "Uncle Tom and I built it last summer. Well, he built it. I handed him nails and stuff." "Very cool," Jackson agreed, touched by the boy's eagerness to share his world. Through the small window of the treehouse, he could see Mia in the garden below, her face tilted up toward them, watching. When she caught him looking, she gave a small wave. Something shifted in Jackson's chest. He'd been so focused on Tyler, on the son he'd just discovered, that he hadn't fully processed seeing Mia again. The woman he'd once loved more than anything. The woman who'd left him and taken a piece of his heart with her. Later, as the afternoon wore on, Tyler's energy finally began to wane. They'd moved to the living room where Tyler was showing Jackson his video game system. "Tyler, why don't you take a little rest?" Mia suggested, noticing her son's drooping eyelids. "You were up very early this morning." "But Jackson's here," Tyler protested weakly, though he was clearly fighting to stay awake. "I'll still be here when you wake up," Jackson promised. "We can play more later." That seemed to satisfy Tyler. He curled up on the couch and was asleep within minutes. "He always crashes like that," Mia said fondly, draping a throw blanket over him. "Full speed ahead until the battery dies completely." With Tyler asleep, an awkward silence fell between them. They moved to the kitchen to avoid waking him. "Coffee?" Mia offered. "Please." As she busied herself with the coffee maker, Jackson leaned against the counter, studying her. She'd changed in subtle ways over the years, a few fine lines around her eyes, a more mature set to her shoulders. But her movements were still graceful, her presence still calming in a way he'd never found with anyone else. "You've done a wonderful job with him," Jackson said sincerely. "He's amazing, Mia," she smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "He is, isn't he? I can't take all the credit, though. He came that way, I think. Smart, kind, curious. Like his mother," Jackson said softly. Mia handed him a mug of coffee, their fingers brushing briefly. She pulled away quickly and took a seat at the kitchen table. "We need to talk about what happens next," she said, suddenly serious. "If you're really staying in Springfield, we need some ground rules." Jackson sat across from her. Such as how much time you'll spend with Tyler, how we explain your sudden appearance in his life, what happens when you inevitably have to go back to your real life." The last part stung. "This is real too, Mia. He's my son. The son you've known about for all of 2 days," she pointed out. "I'm not saying you don't have rights or that you don't care, but your world is boardrooms and million-dollar deals. This," she gestured around the modest kitchen, "is a different universe." "I can adapt," Jackson insisted. Mia gave him a skeptical look. "Remember when we took that camping trip with my family? You lasted 1 night before checking into a hotel. That was different. I was younger, more rigid, and now you're not? Now I have a reason to be flexible," Jackson said firmly. "A reason to try harder." Mia seemed to consider this. Finally, she sighed. "Okay, but we take this slow, for Tyler's sake. No promises you can't keep. No grand gestures that will disappear when you go back to New York." "Fair enough," Jackson agreed. "But I want regular time with him, not just an hour here and there." "We can work up to that," Mia said. "Start with a few afternoons a week, see how it goes." Jackson wanted to argue for more, but recognized the concession for what it was, a first step. All right, what do we tell him about me? About why I wasn't around until now? Mia looked down at her coffee. I've been thinking about that. I think we should tell him a version of the truth. That we were together a long time ago, lost touch, and you didn't know about him until now. That puts all the blame on you, Jackson pointed out. I don't want him to be angry with you. Mia looked surprised by his concern. I can handle it. Better. He'd be temporarily mad at me than think his father didn't want him. The concern in her voice for Tyler's feelings, even at her own expense, touched Jackson deeply. It was so typical of the Mia he'd known, always putting others first. We'll figure out the exact words together, he suggested, when the time is right. Mia nodded. Thank you. From the living room came the sounds of Tyler stirring. Jackson, he called sleepily. Are you still here? Right here, buddy, Jackson called, back rising from his chair. As he passed Mia, she reached out and touched his arm lightly. It's good that you came back, she said quietly. He needs you, he always has. Their eyes met, and for a moment Jackson saw a flash of the old warmth there. Then she dropped her hand and moved past him into the living room. Did you have a good nap, sleepyhead? She asked Tyler, her voice light and motherly. Jackson followed, watching as Tyler rubbed his eyes and reached for the video game controller again. Can we play now? Tyler asked Jackson. I'll teach you how. Absolutely, Jackson said, settling beside him on the couch. As they played, Jackson kept stealing glances at Mia, who sat in an armchair nearby, grading papers. The whole scene was so domestic, so normal, and yet for Jackson, it was entirely new territory. It hit him suddenly that this was what he'd been missing all these years. Not just Tyler, but this, the simple joy of family, of belonging somewhere not because of what he could achieve or what he owned, but just because he was part of something bigger than himself. His phone vibrated with incoming messages, executives needing decisions, deals hanging in the balance. For the first time in his career, Jackson left them all unanswered. There would be time for business later. Right now, he was exactly where he needed to be, learning to play video games with his son, while the woman he'd never quite forgotten sat quietly nearby, completing their unlikely family circle. The Gibson deal could wait. This moment couldn't. 3 weeks passed quickly. Jackson had rented a spacious house just 10 minutes from Mia and Tyler's place, close enough to be convenient, but far enough to give them space. He'd set up a home office in one of the spare bedrooms and handled most of his business remotely, only flying back to New York once for an unavoidable board meeting. Each day with Tyler revealed new sides of his son. The boy was smart, curious, and surprisingly sensitive. He noticed things adults often missed, like when the elderly neighbor was struggling with her grocery bags or when Mia was tired after a long day of teaching. On this particular Tuesday afternoon, Jackson sat on a bench outside Oak Ridge Elementary, waiting for the final bell. This had become his routine 3 days a week, picking Tyler up from school and spending the afternoon with him until Mia finished her faculty meetings. The bell rang and children poured out of the building. Jackson spotted Tyler immediately, his backpack bouncing as he ran toward him. Jackson, Tyler called, his face lighting up. Guess what? I got an A on my math test. That's fantastic, Jackson said, giving the boy a high five. I knew you could do it. Want to get ice cream to celebrate? Yes, Tyler pumped his fist. Can we go to Bernie's? They have the best sundaes. Bernie's it is, Jackson agreed. As they walked to his car, he asked, How was the rest of your day? Tyler launched into a detailed account of playground politics and lunchroom trades that made Jackson smile. It amazed him how quickly he'd come to love this little person, this perfect mix of himself and Mia. At Bernie's ice cream shop, they settled into a booth with 2 enormous sundaes. Easy on the chocolate sauce, Jackson cautioned as Tyler went wild with the toppings at the self-serve bar. Your mum will kill me if you're bouncing off the walls all night, Tyler grinned, adding just a bit more sprinkles. Mum says you're a bad influence. Does she now? Jackson raised an eyebrow. What else does Mom say about me? Tyler considered this as he dug into his ice cream. She says you're not as scary as you pretend to be. Jackson laughed. I'm not sure if that's a compliment. And sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking, she smiles when she's reading your texts. That caught Jackson by surprise. He and Mia had been communicating more frequently, mostly about Tyler, but occasionally about other things too. Small, cautious steps toward something. He wasn't sure what. "Jackson?" Tyler asked suddenly, his expression serious despite the ice cream mustache on his upper lip. "Are you and Mom ever going to get married?" Jackson nearly choked on his ice cream. "That's a very direct question, buddy. Billy at school says his parents got divorced, but then they got married again. He says it's called reconciling." "Reconciliation," Jackson corrected automatically. "And it's complicated between adults. Sometimes. But you like Mom, right? And she likes you, I can tell." Jackson chose his words carefully. "Your mom and I care about each other because we both love you very much. But getting married is a big decision." Tyler looked thoughtful. "If you did get married, would you be my dad for real? Like officially?" "I'm already your dad for real," Jackson said gently. "Nothing can change that, no matter what happens between me and your mom." Tyler seemed to accept this, his focus returning to the rapidly melting ice cream. But Jackson's mind lingered on the question. Did he want to reconcile with Mia? The thought had certainly crossed his mind more than once these past weeks. Later, that evening after dropping Tyler at home, Jackson received a text from Mia. "Tyler said you got him ice cream. Thought we agreed on no sugar before dinner?" Jackson smiled and texted back, "It was a special occasion, A+ on his math test." A moment later, "Fine, but next time frozen yogurt. He's been talking nonstop for an hour." Jackson was about to reply when his work phone rang. It was his CFO, Alan. "Jackson, we have a situation," Alan said without preamble. "Stark Industries is making a play for Carson Technologies. If they succeed, we lose our biggest supplier." Jackson frowned. Carson Technologies was vital to Wolf Enterprises' supply chain. "What are they offering?" $50 million. "But it's not just about the money. Richard Carson is retiring, and his son doesn't have the same loyalty to us." "Set up a meeting with the Carsons," Jackson instructed. "I'll fly to New York tomorrow." After ending the call, Jackson felt a familiar rush of adrenaline, the thrill of business combat, of outmaneuvering competitors, but it was quickly followed by a new feeling, reluctance to leave Springfield, to leave Tyler. He called Mia. "Hey," she answered, sounding tired but pleased. "Tyler finally crashed from all that sugar." "Sorry about that," Jackson said with a smile in his voice. "Listen, I have to go to New York tomorrow, business emergency." There was a slight pause. "Oh, how long will you be gone?" "Just a couple of days, hopefully. But I promised Tyler I'd take him fishing this weekend. My property manager found a great spot by the lake." "He's really looking forward to that," Mia said. "He's never been fishing before." "I'll be back in time," Jackson assured her. "Can you tell him for me that I have to go away for work, but I'll be back for our fishing trip?" "Sure," Mia agreed. "He'll understand." But would he? Jackson wasn't so sure. In Tyler's young life, people who left often didn't come back when promised. "Actually," he said, making a sudden decision, "I'd like to tell him myself. Can I come over for a few minutes?" 20 minutes later, Jackson sat on the edge of Tyler's bed. The boy was sleepy but awake enough to understand. "I have to go to New York for work," Jackson explained. "Just for a couple of days." Tyler's face fell. "But we're supposed to go fishing." "And we will," Jackson promised. "I'll be back by Friday. The fishing trip is still on for Saturday." Tyler didn't look convinced. "That's what Dad Peterson told Jamie, but then he never came back." "Dad Peterson?" Jackson asked, confused. "Jamie's dad," Tyler explained. "He said he had to go on a business trip, but he was really leaving forever. Jamie was really sad." Jackson glanced at Mia, who stood in the doorway. Her expression said this was a familiar fear. "Tyler," Jackson said firmly, "I am coming back. I promise. I would never just leave you." Tyler's blue eyes, so much like his own, looked up at him searchingly. "Pinky promise?" he asked, holding up his little finger. "Pinky promise," Jackson agreed, linking his finger with his son's. "And here's something else." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his watch, an expensive Swiss timepiece he'd bought after his first $1 million deal. "This is my favorite. Watch," he told Tyler, placing it on the boy's bedside table. I want you to keep it safe for me until I get back. That way you'll know for sure I'm coming back, because I'd never leave my favorite watch behind." Tyler's eyes widened. "Really? I can hold it for you?" "Really," Jackson confirmed, "but be careful with it. It's special to me." "I'll guard it with my life," Tyler declared solemnly, making both adults smile. After saying goodnight and promising again to return soon, Jackson followed Mia downstairs. "Thank you for that," she said when they reached the living room. "The watch was a nice touch." "I meant it," Jackson said. "I am coming back." Mia nodded. "I believe you. But Tyler's world has been pretty small and stable until now. Change is scary for kids." "It's scary for adults too sometimes," Jackson admitted. They stood looking at each other in the soft lamplight of Mia's living room. She looked beautiful, her hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes warm with understanding. "You've changed," she said suddenly. "The old Jackson would have just left. Business always came first." "The old Jackson didn't know what he was missing," he replied honestly. Before he could say more, his phone buzzed with a message from his pilot confirming the morning flight. The outside world intruding again. "I should go," he said reluctantly. "Early flight tomorrow." Mia walked him to the door. "Good luck in New York. Try not to terrorize too many boardrooms." Jackson smiled. "I'll do my best." He hesitated, then added, "Mia, when I get back, maybe we could have dinner. Just the two." "Of us?" She looked surprised. "Like a date." "Exactly like a date, if you're interested." A small smile played at her lips. "I might be. Let's talk when you get back." The next morning, as Jackson's private jet took off from Springfield's small airport, he couldn't help but feel he was leaving part of himself behind. The sensation was new and unsettling for a man who had always moved forward without looking back. New York welcomed him with its familiar energy and demands. The Carson meeting was set for the following afternoon. Giving him time to prep with his team, he worked late into the night at his penthouse apartment, which now felt strangely empty and cold compared to the warm chaos of Tyler's home. Just before midnight, his phone chimed with a text from Mia. It was a photo of Tyler, fast asleep, Jackson's, watch clutched in his small hand. He insisted on keeping it under his pillow, the message read, said it would be safer there. Jackson felt a lump in his throat. He sent back a simple "thank you" and a heart emoji, something the old Jackson wolf would never have done. The meeting with Carson Technologies the next day did not go as planned. Richard Carson was cordial but firm. He was retiring, and his son Wesley was taking over. Wesley made it clear he preferred Stark Industries' offer. "Nothing personal, Wolf," Wesley said with a smirk. "Just business." "What if I offered 60 million, Jackson countered. 10 more than Stark. Wesley's eyebrows rose. "Now you're talking. But it's not just about the money. Stark is offering me a position on their board." "What can you add to sweeten the deal?" The old Jackson would have matched or exceeded any offer, regardless of the cost. Business was war, and he never lost. But as he sat across from Wesley Carson's smug face, Jackson found himself reconsidering. Was Carson Technologies worth the price? Worth the time away from Springfield, from Tyler? From the possible new beginning with Mia? "Let me make a call," Jackson said, stepping out of the conference room. He dialed Rebecca. "What's our contingency if we lose Carson?" "We have other suppliers lined up," Rebecca confirmed. "It would be a temporary setback, maybe a 10% drop in production capacity for a quarter while we transition, but not catastrophic." "And the 60 million? "It's available, but it would delay the expansion into European markets by at least a year," Jackson thought about it. The European expansion had been his dream for years, but now he had new priorities, new dreams that had nothing to do with market share or profit margins. He returned to the conference room with a decision made. "Mr. Carson," he addressed the older man, ignoring Wesley completely, "I've valued our partnership over the years, but I'm not going to engage in a bidding war today. Stark can have the deal." Both Carsons looked shocked. Richard recovered first. "Are you sure, Jackson? This isn't like you." "Let's just say I'm reassessing what battles are worth fighting," Jackson replied, gathering his papers. "Wesley, I wish you luck at Stark. You'll need it." Back in his car, Jackson called his pilot. Change of plans. We're going back to Springfield tonight." When Jackson arrived at Mia's house the next morning, a day earlier than expected, Tyler's face lit up with pure joy. "You came back early," he exclaimed, throwing his arms around Jackson's waist. "I missed you too much," Jackson said honestly. "And I couldn't wait for our fishing trip." Mia appeared in the doorway, surprised but smiling. "I thought you weren't coming back until tomorrow." "The meeting went faster than expected," Jackson explained, not wanting to get into the details with Tyler. Listening. "I wrapped things up early. That evening, after Tyler was in bed, Jackson and Mia sat on her back porch swing, each with a glass of wine. The night was warm, crickets chirping in the darkness. "You lost the deal, didn't you?" Mia asked quietly. Jackson looked at her, surprised. "How did you know?" "Because the Jackson Wolf I knew would never have walked away from a business meeting early if he was winning," she said with a slight smile. "And because you seem at peace with it. The old you would have been furious, plotting revenge." Jackson chuckled. "You still know me pretty well." "So what happened?" "I walked away," Jackson admitted. "It wasn't worth it. The money, the time, the energy. I realized I'd rather be here." Mia's eyes softened in the porch light. "That's unexpected." "A lot of things have been unexpected lately," Jackson said, looking at her meaningfully. "Finding out about Tyler, coming to Springfield, realizing what I've been missing all these years." He reached over and took her hand. She didn't pull away. "About that dinner I mentioned," he said. "Are you free tomorrow night? My property manager recommended a nice place by the lake." Mia hesitated. "Jackson, I need to know this isn't just about Tyler, that you're not just trying to create some perfect family picture because you think that's what he needs." "It's not," Jackson assured her. "Yes, Tyler is a big part of why I'm here. But these past weeks, spending time with you again, I've realized something." "What's that?" "That maybe the reason I never settled down, never found anyone else all these years, is because I never really got over you, Mia." She looked away, but he could see the emotion in her profile. "It wasn't all good between us, Jackson. You were so focused on success, on your company. I always came second." "I know," he acknowledged. "And I can't promise I'm completely different now, but I am trying for Tyler and for you if you'll give me a chance." Mia turned back to him, her eyes shining in the dim light. "I'd like that dinner," she said softly. "But let's take it slow, okay? For all our sakes." "Slow it is," Jackson agreed, squeezing her hand gently. That Saturday, as promised, Jackson took Tyler fishing. They rented a small boat and spent the morning on the lake, Tyler bubbling with excitement when he caught his first fish, a modest bass that looked enormous to the 7-year-old. "Can we show Mom?" Tyler asked, holding the fish proudly. "I think she'd like that," Jackson agreed. "And maybe she'd like to join us for lunch afterward? There's a nice picnic area by the shore." Tyler's face lit up. "Yes, let's call her." To Jackson's delight, Mia agreed to meet them. An hour later, the three of them sat at a picnic table by the lake, eating sandwiches and laughing as Tyler recounted his fishing adventure with increasingly dramatic details. "And then the fish was this big," he insisted, stretching his arms. "Wide. I think it grows each time you tell the story," Mia said with a laugh, ruffling his hair. Watching them together, Jackson felt a contentment he'd never known before. For years he'd chased success, thinking that was what would make him happy. But true happiness, he now realized, was much simpler and much more profound. "What are you thinking about?" Mia asked, noticing his contemplative expression. "About how lucky I am," Jackson replied honestly, "to have found you both." Tyler, picking up on the moment, looked between them with hope in his eyes. "Does this mean we're going to be a real family? Like all the time?" Mia and Jackson exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. It was too soon for promises, but not too soon for hope. "We're already a real family, buddy," Jackson said, putting an arm around Tyler's shoulders. "Just a different kind, and we're figuring it out as we go." That seemed to satisfy Tyler, who soon ran off to explore the shoreline, staying within their sight. "Thank you for today," Mia said, watching their son. "He's been happier these past weeks than I've ever seen him." "So have I," Jackson admitted. He reached across the table and took her hand. Mia, I know we have a lot to work through, a lot of history, but I want you to know I'm serious about this, about us, all three of us. Mia looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. I believe you, she said simply, and I'm willing to try. One day at a time. One day at a time. It wasn't a declaration of undying love or a promise of forever, but for now it was enough, more than enough. As the sun began to set over the lake, casting golden light across the water, the three of them walked along the shore. Tyler ran ahead, collecting interesting rocks and calling for them to look at his discoveries. He has your energy, Mia observed. Always moving, always curious. But he has your heart, Jackson replied. Your kindness. They fell into step beside each other, their hands brushing occasionally. Not quite holding, but close, like their relationship. Not quite back together, but no longer completely apart. Last night, he asked if he could call you Dad, Mia said. Suddenly. I told him he should talk to you about it. Jackson stopped walking, overwhelmed by emotion. What do you think? Is it too soon? Mia smiled, her eyes soft. I think he's been waiting his whole life to call someone Dad. And now that he's found you, he doesn't want to wait anymore. Ahead of them, Tyler waved, calling for them to hurry up. The setting sun haloed his small figure, and for a moment Jackson felt a sense of destiny, as if everything in his life had been leading to this moment, to this place, to these people. Come on, Tyler shouted. I found something cool. We're coming, Jackson called back, and for the first time in his life the word we felt completely right. As they joined Tyler at the water's edge, the boy slipped his hands into theirs, creating a physical link between the three of them. A family circle, unexpected but undeniable. The son he never knew had changed everything, had changed him. And standing there as the day's light faded, Jackson Wolfe, once defined solely by his business success, found himself redefined by something far more valuable: love. Dad? Tyler said tentatively, looking up at him with those familiar blue eyes. Is it okay if I call you that now? Jackson knelt down to Tyler's level, his heart full to bursting. I would be honored, he said, his voice thick with emotion. More than honored. Tyler's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. Cool, he said simply. Then hugged Jackson tight. Over the boy's shoulder, Jackson met Mia's gaze. Her eyes were shining with tears, but her smile was warm, full of promise for the future. Their future. Together. Sometimes, Jackson thought, fate knew exactly what it was doing when it threw your past right in your face. Sometimes what looked like an ending was really just the beginning of something far more beautiful than you could have imagined. And sometimes the greatest success story wasn't about business at all, but about finding your way home to the people who were waiting for you all along. The end.